Welcome. I'm Mike Larson, President and CEO of the Michigan Association of United Ways. Thank you for joining us today for our first episode of the Michigan Association of United Ways Leadership Talk series. Just a little bit of background around this. I have the privilege of working with 40 independent local United Ways across the state of Michigan. Their primary focus is around education, financial stability, health, and basic needs of individuals and families in their local communities. And with that, there are a number of things that they're working on to address. And these leadership talks are about lifting up the challenges and opportunities that individuals and families face each and every day, and an opportunity to bring statewide leaders and organizations into this conversation around their work and how we can partner together to address those issues. So it's with my great pleasure that I get to introduce our guest today, former Lieutenant Governor and current President and CEO of the Small Business Association of Michigan, Mr. Brian Calley. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Great to be on the show with you. I really was flattered to get the invitation, and also thank you to all the United Ways across the state. Of course, in my own community, I see firsthand the huge difference that it makes. When I was in the State House of Representatives, and Barry and Ionia County both, a huge fan of the work and the difference that is made and the community support that comes through those local organizations. But of course, as you had mentioned, 40 across the whole state, the footprint and the impact is enormous. Couldn't say enough for it. So I was so pleased and thankful to get the invitation to come on and talk about some important current events with you.
Well, thank you. I've had the opportunity just to watch you over the last several years in your leadership at the state level, the local level, in your passion, not just your leadership, but your passion for issues and for individuals and families. So I was so excited to have the opportunity to meet you in person today to talk a little bit more about that, because you continue to do that great work with the Small Business Association as well. And why don't we take a little bit of time here at the beginning to talk a little bit more about yourself, your background, but also the focus of the Small Business Association of Michigan.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that opportunity. So I started out in banking. My career was in financial services in a small community bank in Ionia, Michigan, and got interested. I was always interested in politics, but a friend of mine was elected to the County Board of Commissioners, and said, we need to revamp the finances of the county, and we don't have anybody on the board with those types of skills. You ought to run for county commissioner. And I didn't even know what a county commissioner was at that time, but I thought, well, maybe I will. So I ended up running. I was unopposed in my primary and my general election, both. My first election, unopposed all the way through. And I got to tell you, I highly, highly recommend unopposed election. By far the best type if you can manage it.
You manage that.
Yeah, it was. But I really got a sense at that point of working at that level, and it's still a very local level. Ionia County is a small county, rural county, and so it was very close, very intimate, and loved it. And at that point, I really got interested and started looking more at the state level, and ran for state representative, and was fortunate enough to win and represent Barry and Ionia counties in the legislature for 2 terms before I met the person who would become governor, Rick Snyder, and so served as lieutenant governor alongside him throughout the much of the previous decade, and so what an honor that was. Yeah. When that term came to an end, many of your viewers might know it came to an end because I did run for governor. I didn't win, but it's still a wonderful experience. And throughout my time in office and running for governor at the end there, I ended up at the Small Business Association of Michigan, and it really did feel like full circle. When I was in banking, I made loans to small businesses. Yeah. That was my main profession. And just love to work with the Small Business Association of Michigan. It's a bipartisan organization, and so we're involved in policy and politics, but that's a relatively small part of our overall organization. We're a business services organization that's trying to create a better environment for the success of Michigan small businesses. We have 30,000 members spread across all 83 counties and every industry you can think of, and in a whole bunch of industries you probably never thought of. And it's really just it's exciting every day to get up and go to work for entrepreneurs that make such exciting things happen. So it's been a challenging couple of years, as you might imagine, for entrepreneurs and small businesses, um, but there's also been a lot of entrepreneurial activity that has started up as well. During uncertain times, people think of different and better ways of doing things, and entrepreneurialism is alive and well, yeah, and across the landscape. And I expect that it will. It's important today. About 50% of all jobs come from small businesses in Michigan. I think that it's really poised to be even bigger in the future because of the new business startup work that we've seen over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. The pandemic has touched all industry, but obviously the small business has been impacted. I can even say because United Ways fall into the small business arena as well. And the environment has changed for all of us. For the past 2 years, our team at the state organization have been working remotely. And actually, I'm doing this conversation from the local Chevy dealership because I could not work at home with kids, dogs, cat, and everything else. It's like I need an environment. I have a good friend that owns this dealership, and he says, "I got a free office for you. Come work here." But I've also got a chance to watch this work environment and how it's been impacted tremendously as well. So the work that you guys do at the state level is huge, and also, and better than most, many of our small businesses employ the Alice population. And for those that don't know who is Alice, the United Ways and nonprofits are known for our acronyms. So it stands for Assets Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. So these are people who are working each and every day but struggle to make ends meet. And in many cases, they're working in small businesses and they're struggling to make ends meet as much as employers do everything they can to support them. So these are the realities and the challenges that individuals face each and every day. So thank you for the background on that. I'm going to start off by just highlighting some of the Michigan Association United Way's policy priorities as we go into this year. And one of them we're going to focus deeper into, and that would be the expanding the earned income tax credit. So I'm going to bypass that one and just talk a little bit about the others. And the next would be Michigan 211. For those that don't know, but many do, it's actually played a significant role during the pandemic, especially, and also in time of crisis. I mean, a lot of different things that 211's played a role in connecting people to the services and help that they need, which is huge because most people don't know where to turn, and 211 is able to do that. And its database and the knowledge that it has on programs and services across the state of Michigan, it's not matched. And it's being utilized more and more. And I think the hope is that we continue to expand and build its capacity to play even bigger role when we need it and it's ready to be used. Another area that we're focusing on is post-secondary attainment. We know that having the skills, the education is going to create opportunities for people to be successful. And we need to look at every opportunity and way to make that happen, whether it's trades, whether it's college, whatever. We need to be able to do that. And that helps, in many cases, small businesses that are looking for qualified employees. The next one would be affordable childcare. One of the largest costs that families have is childcare. In some cases, it's more than a mortgage payment to take care of that. So the more that we can find affordable childcare, accessible childcare during times when they need it. So if somebody's working third shift, what do I do with my children? Those types of solutions we've got to find for families. And then the last would be affordable housing. Anybody that's gone out and tried to buy a house over the last couple of years would realize that's getting even more difficult with the average price of homes. But the reality of a family of an Alice household, very limited budget, to find something that fits their budget is nearly impossible today. So how do we find solutions? And the great thing is we're seeing not just nonprofits, we're seeing governmental organizations coming and wrapping their arms around trying to find solutions around this work. But we see these are major areas of focus that we're trying to do at a statewide level that our local United Ways are focusing on at a ground level. I'm really interested, Brian, your thoughts on some of those and how that ties to your work with the Small Business Association.
There's very strong alignment. If you were to look at the average business association agenda 10 years ago, it would look like regulations and tax issues, maybe some workforce issues as well, maybe a little bit in education, but today it's really quite different. We kind of think of it, especially with small business, who operate and live and operate in the same communities, right? So it's not, small business can't say, hey, we're going to set up a production facility in Singapore. It's not, that's not how it works. I mean, where they live is also where they operate for the most part. And so it lends itself to a much broader view. So we know that places need business. Places need business for jobs and investment and all the economic benefit that comes with business. But businesses need people in order to make the business work.
Right.
And people want place. And so all of those things, people, place, business, it all has to come together. And if any part of it isn't working right, none of it will reach its full potential. And so that's the view, the broader view that we take overall. So we've we've got an intense focus on the people part, because there are so many workforce shortages. Right after kind of coming out of the depths of the pandemic, and I understand it's still going on, but in terms of the part where things were shut down, coming out of that, the it was really the service industry that saw the biggest workforce shortages. But now, coming up on a year later, it's everything across the board. And there have been so many different changes where we've seen younger workers, especially those with children, especially women that have left the workforce at higher numbers than in normal times. We've seen higher retirements as well, and over age 55, a larger exodus. In Michigan, we have an older than average population, so we've always relied more on older workers here. So this was a pretty big sea change, and so it really got us focused in on some things that we haven't looked at before. We haven't really considered core business issues before, like, for example, childcare. Between the Small Business Association of Michigan and the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce, two business associations that really focused in on childcare issues, recognizing that as a barrier for people getting to work, so people would really have a viable option of going to work if that's the path that they wanted for themselves. But even that, there's a whole bunch to it, right? There's the side of, can people afford it, but also availability in the first place. So the reimbursement rates to the providers had to be looked at, and all of those things are in some stage of being addressed in a pilot called the TRISHARE program that we've had some advocacy in getting launched as well. That's now being expanded across the state. Really good things happening, but still kind of early stage in the work that needs to be done there. And then on workforce development, we've got the traditional programs like Going Pro, but also the interest in what we call Reconnect, which is adults being able to go back to community college tuition free. Something that SBAM played a leading role in organizing the business community to support that effort. There's been huge interest in sign up and utilization of that program. Again, still kind of early in that process, to make sure that people are successful in completing and getting to the end of that, to get that credential at the end that provides them a more stable and marketable position out there in the economy, so they can compete and win in a 21st century global economy.
No, I think you're spot on. And the reality is, a lot of those families or individuals that are trying to achieve that have a number of barriers that prevent them, or they have to hurdle over to be able to accomplish that, whether it's transportation, whether it's childcare. I mean, a lot of things impact people's ability to achieve that ultimate goal. And really appreciate your leadership, your organization's leadership around that. That is critical. So thank you for that. Let's dive a little deeper into the earned income tax credit piece. So, for our viewers that might not know what the Earned Income Tax Credit, the EITC is what we call it, is for low to moderate income working individuals and couples, particularly those with children. And the amount of the EITC or the tax credit benefit depends on the recipient's income and a number of children that they have. Um, we know research indicates that families mostly use the EITC to pay for necessities. So, home repairs, fixing their car, which, some people don't even think twice about that. But if you can't get your car fixed, you can't get to work. I mean, there's just a lot of things. And what we know about Alice and the Alice data that we commission the Alice report every 2 years. And what that data is telling us is that 38% of households in Michigan struggle to make ends meet. So they use data to identify what their budget is in their local communities and what it takes. And that's a significant number of individuals and children that are impacted by that. There's no savings account built into that budget. Okay. So when we think of the earned income tax credit, that is almost their savings account in many ways. I'm really interested with SBAM's focus around EITC. What does it mean for small businesses and in supporting their work as well?
Yeah, and and even outside of the Alice work too, I've seen surveys, very recent survey work that shows that that about 2/3 of families live paycheck to paycheck. So that would include people above the Alice rate, but really it's about a different approach than what maybe we saw during, again, the depths of the pandemic. So before it was heightened or expanded unemployment insurance payments, and that you only get that if you're not working. The earned income tax credit is literally the opposite. It is only for people who are working. So in other words, you have earned income. So you have W-2 wages, and if you have W-2 wages but under a certain threshold, then you qualify for a federal tax credit as a reward for going to work, even if your income is not as much as what you might need to live more comfortably. And so it's the idea of getting back in the game, an incentive to go to work, and that's why I think employers and small businesses like it so much, is because it's it's the opposite of some of the things, that the unintended consequences of how some of the social programs are constructed, where you lose when you go to work. In this case, you gain when you go to work, and that's really, I think, where there's great alignment with the business community in this area. So we do support increasing the earned income tax credit at the state level. So it's a big tax credit at the federal level for those who qualify.
Right.
The way that the states works is that you get a percentage and over and above whatever your federal credit is. So right now it's 6%. Whatever your federal credit is, you get 6% more at the state level. So there are proposals out there to move it up to 10 to 15 to 20%. It used to be at 20%.
Right.
That actually changed about 10 years ago, back when the state's budget was in bad shape and the biggest problem was no jobs. And so at that point, things were kind of reconstructed around more job creation in the first place. The state is certainly in a position today, though, given the condition of the budget, where it could afford to expand the earned income tax credit, and it should.
Yeah, I really appreciate you using that mindset around this, because this is, sometimes people think this is a freebie. It's not a freebie. It's an incentive to go to work, and it's an incentive that actually helps people that are struggling while they're working. And so it's a huge benefit for those Alice population. I'm interested from a, if you can give a perspective around the economic impact, because these are dollars more than likely are going to be used locally in businesses like small businesses as well.
Yeah, the economic impact I think comes in a lot of different ways. So there's the obvious like direct impact of the individual receiving the money and using it to live on, and with the Alice population, we know that that it's spent on necessities, which means that it's really put right back into the economy very quickly. The but there's more to it than that. The Right now, one of the biggest frustrations that small businesses have is that there's demand out there in the marketplace for whatever it is that they do, but they can't find enough people to go out there and capitalize on it, to go out there and take advantage of it. And so, to the extent that there's additional incentives for people to get back in the game and go back to work, and for there to be help, childcare and things, or to remove these barriers for people to go back to work, then that's that much more local economic activity that's happening. So those growth opportunities, when your local employer can make more hires because people are around, they can grow, and maybe a little less of that business is snatched up by the corporate giants around the world, but to stay more locally. So it's gonna this really, I think, has two main benefits. It's that it's helping the individual who receives a tax credit, but to the extent that it increases employment, that's where I think you really help small businesses to grow and take advantage of growth opportunities that are out there in the marketplace today.
Yeah, that's really good. How can we collectively come together really to drive this? What I realize in this work is, especially at a local United Way didn't do anything without the partnerships that it creates. It leverages the assets of a community, whether it's nonprofit, the business community, and so on, and brings it together to address issues. And to me, I think, I'm a firm believer in that process. And how do we bring organizations together? But I'm always interested in a perspective of a leader like you on how do we really move the needle on this issue at a statewide level?
Well, the nice thing is that you have a good statewide footprint and great local relationships, and so I would really lean into that to start there. So your local United Way director and the team that you have at the local level to get together with your local chamber of commerce and communicate and advocate directly with your state representatives and state senators on this. Now, many of them are already supportive, and I think it's in a good position to actually move as part of this year's budget process. So, but to really put some muscle behind that interaction and establish the relationship with that local decision maker, that local legislator, and let them know that you really support this. This would be something that would be positive to do for the future, so that later on when they're putting the budget, that what you want is for the later on they're putting together the budget for them to be thinking of their local United Way director. Oh yeah, this is something that was discussed at the local level. I know there's a lot of local support for it. Therefore, I should advocate for it when it comes through the process for consideration. So, and also I'd say be nice. It used to be that that to get more notice, that people, to stick out, you got to be real forceful and just kind of drive it home and punch it in there. Now everybody does that. So the way to stick out and to be remembered is to be nice. So in the political process, it's really kind of so much is deteriorated now. So when you're gracious and nice and accommodating, that it makes you stick out among the crowd these days.
That's great advice. Well, Brian, I just want to thank you for taking the time to join me today. I could spend another hour with you just talking about this. I appreciate the passion and the leadership you bring to these issues, because this really touches the heart of individuals and families in our communities across the state of Michigan. Continue to do the great work, and we look forward to the continued partnership with you as we move issues like this forward. I would encourage our viewers, if you want to learn more about the Earned Income Tax Credit or the Alice Report itself, you can go to our website at www.uwmich.org. There's a lot more information in there to help inform and educate and hopefully get you to advocate for these issues as well. Also, I want to say as we move forward, look forward to next month because we're going to continue the series, Leadership Talk series, and more to come around the Alice report and what we're finding, new sub reports coming out of that we're going to be sharing in the future. So please join us as well. So Brian, again, special thank you taking the time to join us today. And to all of our viewers, thank you for joining us and have a wonderful day.